Hi everyone. I'm a regular 38-year-old Singaporean, 9 to 6 tech worker living in HDB, simple lifestyle with no car. Here I document my journey towards a $4.5 million retirement goal by age 50. The portfolio sits at $579,000 so far, where more than half of the portfolio are profits with 136.77% in gains and has outperformed the S&P 500 by 79%, producing an annualized performance of 22.42%, double the S&P 500's after 4 to 5 years of investing. One thing I'd like to mention is that this portfolio result includes the down period through 2022, when the Fed hiked interest rates, crashing the markets. I have 12 more years to go for a total of 16 years in investing. By the way, for those of you who are wondering, this portfolio tracker I'm using is called Portsedo, and I use it because it gives me a combined view across my 3 brokers and allows me to compare against different benchmarks like the S&P 500. I've got a link in the description below if you want to check it out. So I received a lot of feedback from earlier episodes where people were saying that they want to see screenshots of my 3 brokers instead of just the Portsedo tracker. So from now onwards, just for the sake of transparency, I will also share the broker screenshots every episode. Anyway, let's get started on some unconventional ways to think about budgeting for young Singaporeans who are working towards early financial freedom. The first thing I'd like to introduce to you is this mental framework known as the 80-20 Pareto principle, created by philosopher Vilfredo Pareto. Now, the 80-20 rule states that roughly 80% of consequences comes from 20% of causes. For example, you might be wondering maybe, how come 80% of my day every day disappears? Where did all the time go? So then you start recording what you do every day for the 16 hours that you are awake. And you find that maybe you do mainly 5 things: going to the gym, working, eating, watching Netflix, and finally, scrolling TikTok. And then you realize that out of the 5 things that you do every day, right, scrolling TikTok, which is 1 out of 5 activities, and hence the top 20% of activities, resulted in 80% of your whole day of 16 hours eaten up. So if you just focus and aim at cutting down this top 20%, which is TikTok, you would unlock and solve 80% of your time wastage. Because it would be dumb to say, okay, let's just focus on cutting down on my gym, my working, my eating, my Netflix, and leave the TikTok alone. Because no matter how many of the other 4 activities you cut through the day, even if you completely eliminate all of them, which is virtually impossible for some people, you will still find 80% of your time is still taken up by TikTok and the root problem remains unsolved. Now this all sounds damn philosophical. Where the hell is Contra Turtle going with all this nonsense? What has this got to do with budgeting and Singaporeans' road to early financial freedom? Now here is a random cash flow breakdown of a Singaporean household. There may be a lot of scenarios I didn't cover, like parents' allowance, tuition fees, baby fees, etc. for the typical Singaporean. But I'll use this to generally represent Singaporeans aspiring to upgrade to a condo and own a car. So I will use this to explain how we can apply the 80-20 principle when thinking about budgeting. So let's say these are the total monthly household expenses, right? Between you and your wife, your whole family, just like one household, which sums up to maybe 10K per month. And maybe this household feels like, they are very financially stretched. So they're trying to figure out, okay, how can I effectively reduce my cash flow stress and improve my financial margin of safety? So notice that I've ordered the expenses from most expensive at the top with a mortgage of, let's say, $5,000 to the least expensive expense cash outflow at the bottom, which is maybe Amazon Prime, right, at $4.99. Whenever you do budgeting, I want you to do the exact same thing as I'm demonstrating now with your own expenses. Write down all your expense cash outflows per month and order them granularly. You can do it on a Google Sheet or Microsoft, Excel sheet, whatever it is, right? Just order them granularly from most expensive at the top to the least expensive at the bottom. And then on the right, you can see here, I calculated the percent that each item takes up out of the total $10,000. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to focus our attention on only the top about 20% of items. It's not exact science, by the way. I say 20% doesn't mean you divide by 5 and then you find the top few items. Sometimes it's like 25% or 15 or 30%, right? But you get the idea. Is there is this like lopsided focus at the very top few items that contributes to it, like 80% of the outgoing monthly cash flows. Right? So this is the 80-20 Pareto principle. And we realize with this example, if we were to reduce the cash outflows of the top few items, let's say maybe we reduce it by half, that would already be $4,000, which is like 40% of the total 10K in cash outflow. Now in contrast, if you were to cut the bottom 80% of items by half, it would only reduce the total cash outflow by $1,000 or 10% of the total, which is much smaller than if you focus on the very top 20% of items. In fact, even if I go really crazy and I say, you all cut out all of the bottom 80% of expenses. That would only reduce the total cash outflow by $2,000 or about 20%. But is that possible? You can't be living in a condo and driving a BMW but not eat, not have internet, and then don't go for a haircut, right? And this is the harsh reality that many Singaporeans refuse to admit, which is that if you feel you are financially stretched, the place you need to look at in your budget is from top to bottom, not from bottom to top of your monthly cash outflows. I mean, I lost count of how many of friends or relatives who drive Conti cars, or maybe they live in a condo and they come out to me complaining about how stressed they are when the chicken rice increased by 50 cents at the hawker center. And they feel stressed that their cash flows are very tight every month. To me, right, this makes absolutely no sense. Because even if you were to completely not eat any outside food and you just eat Maggi mee every day, add a bit of salt and seasoning, by the 80-20 principle, you will never cover the top few big ticket items that includes the Conti car or a condo mortgage. So I disagree with the common saying. I disagree completely and unconventionally. I disagree that people say that it's because of people's stinginess with the small items that they can afford a so-called luxurious lifestyle. To me, this logic is flawed. I can promise you that if you do the top-down budget ranking exercise I just showed you, you will always notice the 80-20 principle holds true, and the highest few expense items account for the majority of the reason for financial stress. Now already, I can hear the army of condo leverage warriors furiously typing in the comment section below about how a condo is asset progression, and using leverage loans, you can get high returns on capital. So the high monthly condo mortgage cash flow is justified. Now, I won't focus on the debate of condos versus stocks this episode because I've already done that in a separate episode. You can check it out. But at least for me and my wife in our household, despite us earning a very decent combined income, we have intentionally chosen to apply the 80-20 principle and remove the top two biggest cash outflow factors. And we choose intentionally to live in a simple HDB and have no car. And because of that, we never sweat the small details at the bottom of the expense sheet, like where to eat, how many streaming subscriptions we have, or the quality of healthcare we give our newborn baby and ourselves, because we have already optimized the big amounts at the very top of the budget sheet. And we prefer to make money through other means like the stock market, where there's more flexibility, less leverage involved, and I'm not shackled by a fixed amount I must send to the bank every month in the form of mortgage repayments. On months where I prefer to just chill or where I think the market is overvalued, I simply keep my extra cash flow as cash in the bank, improving my financial safety margin since I have no obligations to pay out any extra cash flows from my income to anyone. And it's not that I'm telling you guys that you should never live in a condo or you never have a car. No, that's not the point. In fact, if you are a high earner and the condo and car are a very small percentage of your monthly income and truly doesn't stretch you financially, then by all means, go ahead. But if you are like the vast majority of Singaporeans and you feel a financial pinch if you're buying a condo or a Conti car, I urge you to apply the 80-20 principle and not fool yourself when you are budgeting. There are many ways to make money. It does not necessarily have to be only a condo. And as for a car, if you truly need one because you have maybe the elderly or a baby at home, there's no need for anything extravagant, just so you can keep up with the Joneses. I guess what I'm saying is, don't miss the forest for the trees, or don't be penny wise, pound foolish when looking at your budget. By the way guys, if you like the content so far, remember to give the channel a bit of turtle power and click subscribe so you can be informed when I push out new content. I also run a Patreon Discord community called the Turtle Knots with over 140 members at the moment, where I release exclusive video episodes showing my stock portfolio buy levels and transactions transparently, and sharing analysis of different companies within my circle of competence in technology where I work in as a solutions engineer. I've kept the monthly subscription affordable at 12 Sing dollar per month, which is the cost of about 2 cai per fish, because I never want the subscription to cripple any Singaporean's financial journey or take up the 80-20 in your monthly budgets. If you're interested to improve on investing or you want to mingle with community members, there are actually quite a few professionals working in fund management, MNCs, or even young aspiring Singaporeans looking to reach early fire, and there's a lot of discussions in the channels. So I've left a link to the Patreon in the description below, so feel free to join the community. Anyway, back to the episode. Now, the purpose of this episode, I must stress again, is not to focus on condos or cars alone, but more to practice the 80-20 budgeting muscle I've just explained, especially if you feel your cash flow strapped every month and you feel like you need to make a change. If you live in a simple HDB and you don't drive a car, yet cash flows are still tight, then you will need to do this exercise of ranking your expenses from top to bottom again. Because maybe the 80-20 problem is instead Labubus, which is all the rich now. I know some people nowadays I see they are just spending hundreds or even thousands of dollars I heard per month, chasing some of this out of stock Labubus. And the queue at Poma is pretty insane. I don't know. Every time I go past Ion, it's some next level queue, and everyone looks like to be in a FOMO hurry. I don't know why, man. And for these people, it might be the case that Labubus or some other expense items in their life appears at the top of their budget line items. And some of them are so obsessed they become labubu themselves. Whatever the top few expenses are, figure it out because each one of us Singaporeans have different spending habits. And all our 80-20 will look very different from one another. Be brutally honest with yourself whether these top 80-20 items are worth the trade-off for the financial stress you take up, and whether these items are truly a need, not a want. Now, if you're wondering what Contra Turtle's monthly 80-20 cash flow looks like, at the top of my 80-20 is of course stock investing, which I'm intentionally using to replace condos as a long-term asset builder. And next in line is healthy foods. Yeah, I spend a ton of expenses on healthy foods and natural supplements. I buy the best organic berries at the supermarket, which by the way I want to share with you all. Research has shown that raspberries have the best anti-inflammatory effect compared to all other berries. So you need to decide on a berry. I highly recommend raspberries. But it comes at quite a high cost and expires damn fast. So high quality health really comes at a price, but it's worth it to me. And then I mix in with some probiotic cereal oats for gut health. I throw in some extra virgin olive oil to improve my heart and brain power. My grocery bills and my food bills are pretty expensive. Like they're really at the top. Like because I live in HDB and I don't have a car, so really the biggest expense for me is really food. Like it's really a huge chunk. And my next big ticket item is health treatments. It could be TCM where I'm doing cupping pretty regularly. I found a really good. It's called Sojin. They have it at some of the malls. I've gone through so many. Right, I found I found that their treatment is like one of the best. And yeah, and so I could be doing TCM cupping, or sometimes I top up some cash above my health insurance to see the specialist for my own health, the doctor, or even for my baby. I literally just went to tell you guys like how crazy it is, okay? How extreme I go about this health thing. I literally just went to the hospital to see an ENT specialist, right, ear, nose, and throat. And then I had the doctor analyze my nasal passages to check if there is too much picang side up my nose, preventing me from sleeping well. And then I ordered through this doctor a sleep study where they're gonna wire me up and check my heart rate and breathing when I'm asleep so I can optimize my sleep. And then this will help me to make better decisions during the day at work and with my stock analysis and giving me lots of productivity gains long term. I know this sounds fucking hilarious, guys. But every month, when I look at these top two items at the top of my expense sheet, I'm very happy with these spendings because to me, health is a need, not a want. I hope you enjoyed this episode, everyone. May the 80-20 Pareto principle help you with everything from your budget to your life.